We have here straight from Israel, Shimon from the Temple Institute, and they're going to be building a model of the Holy Temple that was built in Jerusalem by King Solomon, and the second temple that was later on built by when the Jews returned from Babylon. And we pray and hope for the building of the third temple, which will usher in a period of world peace for all humanity. So the children are actually going to build the temple, and they'll have a chance to make some of the incense, which is sweet-smelling spices that we use in worship.
Thanks for inviting me from Jerusalem. At 1:10, we're going to begin to get ready to build the temple. We're also ongoing. We'll be grinding the incense that was used in the holy service every day. Something to remind your senses of the past and keep the hopes in the future.
Everyone dance, come to the valley, run through the clover harvest is over. Dance, everyone dance, dance where the corn was high under a golden sky. Dance where the wine was born. Dance, everyone dance. Whirl and turn about, lift up your arms and shout. Join hands, skip along. Dance, everyone dance. Turn left, turn right, hold tight.
My name is Steve Frankel. I'm from the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. We teach about the temple, we study about the temple, and I'm here in North America trying to spread the word about the temple.
What is the importance about the temple?
So the temple was a great national monument and religious center throughout the history of the Jewish people, really from the time Mount Sinai. For 1,300 years, the temple was a part of being Jewish. And only after that, we have what we have now, an artificial situation where we're without a temple. The temple served as a... So there was a tabernacle and there were two temples. The first tabernacle was built in the desert by Moses, and that lasted about 480 years, not only 40 years in the desert, but also the beginning years of being in Israel. And then King David, King Solomon, they built the first temple. It lasted 410 years. And then the Babylonians destroyed the first temple. And the second one was built by Ezra. The exiles returned from Babylon. And that stood for 410 years. The building we have here is the last evolution of that second temple, because the second temple was built 3 times. Once with the Babylonian exiles, it was built again by the the Maccabees. The whole Hanukkah story is really part of rededication and rebuilding almost from scratch the temple. And then this one was built by Herod in the end of the 1st century BCE and the beginning of the
Temple Mount is God's holy seat.
absolutely God's holy seat is the Temple Mount, and within the temple you can see from the model that there are steps, and as you get up to each step you get to a higher and higher level of holiness. So there's also a physical aspect. They say that when you move to Israel, even today we call it Aliyah, we call it going up. And when you get to Israel, the common expression, and someone who lives in Israel is going to Jerusalem, they say in Hebrew, I'm going up to Jerusalem. And when you get to Jerusalem, when you're going to go to the Temple Mount, you go up to the Temple Mount. And then you can see once you get to the Temple Mount, there are still steps to go up to. That keep on going up to a higher level of holiness. When you get into that building over there, that would be a place that only the priests will be able to see. And that's this is all scripturally ordained. The book of Exodus, the book of Leviticus. Again, the building techniques changed over the years. They obviously used this at the time was the tallest building in the world. It was a major tourist attraction. There were people from Rome and Greek and Persia and Egypt that wrote in their travel logs about, don't miss if you can, don't miss the temple. You can see by the height of it, if you can see my little man there in front of the door, and the little man here. Well, the little man in front of the door is built to the same scale. So you can get an idea of the height of the temple. And the temple here is set up into 3 different sections. The first section, the front, is called the women's courtyard.
It's called what?
Women's courtyard. Right, but it's not like Orthodox synagogues where men and women are separated. The women's courtyard was named that way because of an event that happened 1 week during the entire year, the Feast of the Tabernacles. We used to have a big party here. And so then they asked the women to sit on top, and the men would be on the bottom. The Levites would come out to these steps over here. They would play their music. It was the only time they would come out of the main courtyard in order to play their music. They'd play their music, they'd be juggling with fire. These things over here are lampposts. And they were kept going 24 hours a day for the 7 days of the festival. If you can notice, just want to hold, he would be responsible in making sure that there's enough oil here for 7 days straight. He'd be going up and down. The sources say that either there were ladders, but the ladders weren't tall enough to reach the top. So at the last point, the priest would be with a jug on the back of oil back of his back, like a camelback like we have today. He'd have a strap, and he'd be carrying himself stuff. So being a priest wasn't necessarily a very, not necessarily spiritual. He had to do a lot of physical work involved.
Is someone to climb up there again?
What?
When the Temple Mount is rebuilt,
Yes.
is someone going to climb up again?
Well, no, we think, again, they use then modern technology. We will probably use modern technology. So we're going to light it up like Yankee Stadium from the top when we need to. But that's what they could do at the time, so that's what they did.
So what's stopping them from rebuilding?
That's a very, first of all, we're waiting for the time to be right and for God to let us know that the time is right.
Second of all, there's a mosque on top of the, we got the map.
Second of all, there's politics involved. But one thing I want to say, the prophecy of the third temple says that the third temple is going to be a temple for all people. It's not going to be a Jewish temple as it was, but it's going to be open for everybody. In order to reach that status, things have to change in the world. The current events don't lead us to believe that a lot of the major religions are going to be finding one temple to pray at. At this point, on the Temple Mount, I would love to go to the Temple Mount just to go as an individual and pray. but it's considered, if I go on the Temple Mount to pray, I'll be arrested for incitement to riot. Because the people who are there will riot if I pray, and the Israeli police decided that because of that, people who are not Muslims aren't allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. So things have to change before the third temple will be built. Hopefully we'll all find out that we can all pray to the same time, in the same place, to the same thing, and then it'll be really time to build a temple. If we know that King David wanted to build a temple, and he was told by God that he can't build a temple because he was a soldier, he was a warrior, and God told him that the temple has to be built by a man of peace. Now, it's not coincidental that David's son, when David had a son, he named him Solomon in English, but David didn't speak English. David spoke Hebrew, and the name he gave his son was Shlomo. And in the word Shlomo, you hear the word Shalom. So Solomon was born a man of peace, and therefore he could build the temple. So we have to find men of peace that are going to be able to build the third temple. And then hopefully it will happen tomorrow, the next day. We're waiting, I would say, patiently or not patiently. But in the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, we do everything we can to be ready for when that happens. Not to then start figuring out what we have to do, but we know what to do, now just in the place. Everything's in place. I wouldn't say all the rabbis ready, that's part of getting all ready. We build the vessels, as you can see here. I have little models of the vessels, the holy vessels. Well, we have in Jerusalem full-size models made according to the scriptures. So they're good to go. So we're ready.
And the Temple Mount, when the Israelis start building it, will take how long to build it?
You know, it's a big building. We believe that while there are, God helps us, but we believe there's a positive commandment in the Torah. It says, build me a temple. So why would God take that away from us? We want to build a temple. So yes, how long is it going to take? It's a big building. So we have plans, and we can start, but it's going to take time. I don't know how long buildings this size take. How long does it take to? I say it's about the Freedom Tower. Some enemy 12 years ago, 13 years ago, took down a national monument for the people in New York and the people in the United States. I happened to be there that day with Israel, but I happened to be in on business. And I was there that day when I was in New York. By the end of the day, after people got through the shop, people are thinking about how are they going to rebuild these towers that were taken down by the enemy. Well, this building was taken down by the enemy 1,944 years ago. And the normal reaction is, we got to rebuild it. Just like the Freedom Tower standing now, so that gives us a little encouragement. Enemy took it down, people decided to get together and build it again. It's built. We're waiting for the time that we can see this real close. Right now, the Dome of the Rock is on there. It's all controlled by the Israeli government. After the Six-Day War in August, they gave back the keys to the Temple Mount, really believing, and it's like looking back, I was a little boy then, but I do remember the feeling that if we give back everything to the Arabs, that we're going to have peace, they're going to want it. They're going to come to us and say, okay, give back what you won in the Six-Day War, and then we'll have peace. So the naive government in Israel at the time, they thought if we do something nice for the Arabs, then they're going to do something nice for us. It didn't kind of pan out that way. It was, looking back, it was not such a smart move. At the time, they did their best to bring peace on Israel, which is what Israeli governments usually try to do, to bring peace to Israel. It doesn't work out, so next, we'll try something else this time. But so they control it, the WAP, they control it, the Arab, religious, really based in Jordan, they control it, and they're very, The apostles are very possessive. Well, in the temple, there are a few functions. One of the priests.
No, he's just showing you, but it doesn't go in there.
They're the ones that do the worship. They do bless the community. They bring the offerings.
They do the arts and crafts. They have
But there also was in this corner over here. There was a building. It's called the Sanhedrin. It's where the court was. So the court was in the temple also. The temple was like very much, you know, like you go to Washington and then there's the Capitol and then there's the White House and then there's the Supreme Court, and it was like the capital, functioning capital of our country. That's one thing that's we're trying to bring back into the knowledge of the Jewish people in general, the world, that Judaism used to be a nation state. We're a nation. We had rules, we had laws, and so now going back to Israel, we're once again a nation. We have rules, we have laws, and part of it is the religion is part of it. There was, in this time, certainly no concept of separation between church and state, but there wasn't in anywhere else in the world at the time either. Right. The king was also a god, and he was appointed by, he had divine powers, or he was at least nominated by God all over the world. So, and that's the way the ancient world saw it, and that's how we see the world.
Even in the American Capitol, the Congress used to pray. They did to the Capitol.
Right.
It was known, but they did. Yeah.
So again, hopefully when we get back to the real thing, there'll be rabbis, of course, and there'll be politicians. There'll be people. Thank you.